Hi, welcome to The Inner Way. Today we're starting a new series on Saint Isaac the Syrian. Specifically, we're going to be reading from the ascetical homilies of Saint Isaac the Syrian. And there he is right there. Hi, welcome to The Inner Way, a program exploring the spirituality of the Orthodox Church. I'm your host, Father David Smith. This is our 24th program, and it's the first in a series on the writings of Saint Isaac of Syria. During Lent, I often choose a spiritual book to read, something substantial that I can read every day, and it takes the whole of Lent for me to complete. Not a book that I'm going to read all at once, like a novel or something like that, but something non-fiction, usually the writings of a saint. This year, I've chosen the ascetical homilies of Saint Isaac the Syrian, published by Holy Transfiguration Monastery in 2011. I'll start commenting on specific parts of the homilies starting next week. But before we get into the homilies, let's look at Saint Isaac himself. Saint Isaac the Syrian was a monk and a bishop in the 7th century. He was a bishop for only a short time. The demands of the office kept him away from his life of prayer, and he resigned after only 5 months. He was a part of the Persian Church, or the Church of the East, as it's called, a branch of Christianity that was centered in Edessa, which is in modern-day Turkey. It thrived for over 1,000 years, this church, from the 5th to the 16th centuries. It still continues today, but smaller than in its heyday. Some people call the Church of the East the Nestorian Church. It's called Nestorian because its theology used the teachings of Nestorius as a foundation. Nestorius was a 5th century heretic who had been Patriarch of Constantinople, but whose teachings were condemned by an ecumenical council, I believe, while he was still alive. The common way of explaining his heresy focuses on his opposition to the term Theotokos, which we use to refer to Mary, the mother of Jesus. Theotokos means birth giver of God. Nestorius believed that this term went too far, that we should not say that a human being gave birth to God. Now, I'm not going to wade into that, into the impressive density of historical theology, but only to ask one question. Do we have to be concerned about the influence of the teachings of Nestorius on Saint Isaac the Syrian, who lived in the 7th century? So they lived 200 years apart and were from different parts of the world, but the heretic was clearly seen as one of the pivotal theologians of the church, of the part of the Christian church to which Saint Isaac belonged. So, do we have to be concerned? No, we do not have to be concerned about Saint Isaac's writing, which is truly and fully orthodox and has nothing to do with the teachings of Nestorius. It's a contemporary fad to link Saint Isaac with Nestorianism, but this is, I think, not correct, and will in time fade away as all free thinking does. Fads fade. Oh, I never thought of that before. Fads fade. I wonder if both of those words are from the same root. Anyway, if you happen upon such views, run to the book that we will study during Lent, the Ascetical Homilies, and find the truth of all things there. I will say again and again that Saint Isaac, is the spiritual father who wrote the most eloquently and beautifully about stillness, which we focused on the last in the last 15 programs by looking at the writings of Saint Ezechias. Here in Saint Isaac, we're going to have a different way of looking at stillness, different than St. Ezechias. And this will benefit us, even us non-monastics, those of us living in the world. This will benefit us as it benefits, well, any student to learn from a master. As St. Isaac said, the man who is conscious of his sins is greater than he who profits the whole world by the sight of his countenance. The man who sighs over his soul for but 1 hour is greater than he who raises the dead by his prayer while dwelling amid many men. The man who is deemed worthy to see himself is greater than he who is deemed worthy to see the angels, for the latter has communion through his bodily eyes, but the former through the eyes of his soul. You could see how dedicated he is to stillness, but he links it very, very closely with solitude. The standard the saint sets for us is that we renounce and leave the world and pursue not only stillness, but also solitude. And as a point of fact, he would say that solitude is required for stillness. For many of us, this is impossible. But we can't give up on Saint Isaac simply because we cannot forsake the world. The ones for whom solitude was and is possible, Saint Isaac first among them, experience God at depths we cannot imagine, brothers and sisters, and then relay their experiences back to us for our edification and instruction. So we'll get started next week, the first week of the Triodion in the Orthodox Church. We'll start looking at the ascetical homilies of St. Isaac the Syrian. I hope you'll join us. And until then, God bless you, and I'll see you in church.